All righty. Okay, folks, I think we're going to get going. I'm going to stay at the podium. Yeah, maybe I do need. Okay, we're going to get going. Thank you. My voice comes in handy sometimes. I'm going to stay at the podium because we are webcasting, and so want to keep the slides and myself, and then we'll participate with people online as well as in the room. Great turnout. Thank you all for coming. Lots of colleagues from within the university and outside. We won't do a roundtable now in the interest of time, but we will have roundtable discussions as part of the agenda. So you'll get to introduce each other to who's at your table at least. And through the session, we'll have lots of plenary discussions so anybody can speak up and say who they are. I'm Rob Greenwood, Executive Director, Public Engagement, and with this hat on for the Leslie Harris Center of Regional Policy and Development. And I think this is now March 1st, 2004. I started with the Harris Center. It started with the Center of Regional Development Studies, which in October 2004 became the Harris Center when it merged with the Public Policy Research Center. So we've got, I think it's 15 years now under our belts and running full out. We have a bunch of the Harris Center team here who will participate at the various tables, and I'll pick on them, or you will, at various times to talk about elements of what we're up to. For folks online, thanks for joining us, and I will walk through our slides here. They're giving me only 20 minutes, which we've eaten into already at the beginning, to maximize the time for discussion. So I'll flip through the slides. Everybody in the room, and I think online you have access on our website to the existing 5-year plan, which includes the description of the mandate, which has evolved a little bit over time, but not a lot. And the real essence of it is we cut across the whole university, all the campuses, all the faculties. We're not to be primarily the doer. We're the facilitator, coordinator. If it relates to Newfoundland and Labrador, regional development broadly defined, and public policy as relates to that. But really, it's the faculty, staff, and students across the university who are the key players we depend on to then broker partnerships, relationships with our colleagues across the province, in the private sector, in government, in NGOs. Our vision encapsulates the fact that it relates to regional development and public policy. So it's about a vibrant democracy where we're actively engaged, prosperous and sustainable society, and there's a lot to be done still in the vision. I often feel I'm in a profession that, success is when I'm out of a job, but it seems I've been at it a long time and maybe I'm the problem. But it's a big challenge, lots of successes, but lots of remaining challenges, as all of us in the room know, as well as those watching through the webcast. So the mission is really about that connector role, supporting the collaboration between the university and the people of the province. Values we live by day in, day out. From the day Dr. Leslie Harris agreed to let us name the new center in his honor, he really exemplified the integrity and independence of the university while making a practical application. And we wear his name with honor every single day, and every single decision we make takes that very seriously. And it's been really critical for us working with faculty, because we often put projects together and money together with outside partners and often government or industry. But the independence of the faculty member or the student, the scholar, doing the project, writing what they think is the value we bring. So we're happy to take people's money, but we guarantee you will not be able to influence the outcome, which is a different value proposition. But there is a value proposition there that we've been sought out for that and still are, day in, day out, all the time. Of course, we want to ground truth with people in the industry, in community, in government. And but in the end, it's the scholar, the author, the team whose opinion stands in that document. So the integrity, independence are really at the core. inclusivity, obviously, and being proactive and reaching out to more groups who haven't been involved with us in the past. Transparency in our decision making. It's all about collaboration. We're not meant to be a think tank. We're not meant to be the ones doing the work in-house. So everything we do is about public engagement, connecting people in the university with people outside the university. And our mandate is not to advance curiosity-based research. That's fundamental to the university, and it's the bedrock on which practical application comes. But our job is on the connecting for the practical application that will benefit Newfoundland and Labrador in the short, medium, long term. So we put a lot of work into the 5-year plan, and many of you participated in those sessions, and thank you very much. Because after 15 years, 14 years at that point, an organization evolves. Different people have different influence as it evolves, and stakeholders have different demands and needs. So the 5 goals, the first one was really consistent with a lot of what the Harris Center had done from day one, working with individual faculty, staff, students in the university, connecting them with funding, platforms, regional workshops, Memorial Present synergy sessions, so that they could connect with the community, get their work out there, get input on their work. The second one, we had been doing a ton of work with national, international, provincial networks, but it was always kind of from the side of your desk. Boyne in particular has been a leader nationally in the Research Impact Network. A bunch of us have been involved with CERF, the Canadian Rural Revitalization Foundation, the North Atlantic Forum, etc. And so much of that is consistent with our core mandate that we thought we really needed to build that into one of the goals of the organization in the 5-year plan. The third goal is really significant, especially over the last 5 years or so, in a period of cuts, because we have a long record of working with faculty, staff, and students who were all embedded in faculties and schools and other centers and other campuses. And we dealt really constructively all the time with deans and associate deans, but often we're all really busy. And so you can be dealing individually with a faculty member, but it isn't necessarily showing up as something the dean or the associate dean or the director of a center sees as a partnership between them and the Harris Center. So we want to continue to do goal 1 with all the individuals, but we're being much more conscious and deliberate about how we partner with the Marine Institute, with Grenfell campus, with the Labrador Institute, and with the various faculties, schools, and centers at the university. And there's a bunch of stuff happening in that regard. Goal 4 also was a bit of a departure. We emphasized we're not a think tank, hiring staff in-house to do work. Our think tank is the university, all the faculty, staff, and students. But we have developed over the years some capacities in partnership with outside organizations and with faculty, where we are becoming a trusted source for information, analysis, and facilitation. The Vital Signs, the Regional Analytics Lab with Alvin Sibbs and Jamie Ward. YAFL has become a tool that is pan-university that we're the steward for, etc. So it's more of a direct value add than just being a broker. So we built that into goal 4. And finally, maintain high performance operations. The move to the Signal Hill campus has been a fantastic opportunity for us. Although like this session, we want to continue to do work on the main campus, in the Marine Institute, at Grenfell campus, Labrador Institute, etc. But also budget cuts are continuing to be a challenge for all of us. And so looking at revenue streams with the federal government, funding councils, foundations, and services that we can charge for where appropriate. But we don't want to compete with the private sector either. So never-ending balancing act, but that's why we're hired to do this stuff. We've done a lot in 15 years, and we're constantly updating the metrics. We've done evaluations, are on our website. Happy to talk about examples of impact, but just the sheer magnitude of dollars, numbers of events, numbers of participants. And early on when I was hired, people said, well, what will success look like after 2 years or 3 years? And one of the key elements was just that we would have built our brand. And I think it is fair to say, amongst the organizations and leadership of the province involved in regional policy and development, everybody knows who the Harris Center is. The average member of the public for the most part, still doesn't, although a lot do. And it often surprises us, in fact, when we hold a vital signs launch or the like, the number of people who aren't formally affiliated with an organization, but who really count on that vital signs document, who go to our website, who give us hell if we haven't had a Memorial Presents for a while. And so the brand truly is built. And I think the brand of integrity and independence in the name of Leslie Harris is solid. So there's a whole bunch of things we do. I'll whip through them quite quickly, but happy to discuss at the tables and in the various plenaries through the next hour and a half or so. One of the core areas, of course, when we started, it was by merging the Center of Regional Development Studies, which I was hired to lead, with the Public Policy Research Center, which Dave Vardy was the acting director at the time. Dave, of course, former president of the Marine Institute before it joined MUN, and the clerk of executive council, deputy minister, no stranger to anybody these days in the media, so he's still very active. And it was his idea that we merged the two centers early on to create what became the Leslie Harris Center of Regional Policy and Development. So public policy, civic engagement has been core right from the beginning. And we continue to do our Memorial Presents, our Synergy Sessions, and the annual Galbraith Lecture. But with funding cuts, we've had to rethink how we do them, piggyback on existing events more often, but also now with the opening of the Signal Hill campus, the Emira Innovation Exchange, that gives us amazing capacity for webcasting, meeting space. Glad to see Jen Adams here, alumna of the Harris Center, but now the lead at Signal Hill campus. And she and her team are doing an amazing job making that thing sing. It is not meant just to be a cool thing in St. John's. It is, but it's meant to be a platform for province-wide connection and communication and partnership, and indeed worldwide. So we're just figuring out within the Harris Center how we maximize our place in that great new facility. But those core Harris Center programs are continuing in our work plan, and we can talk more about those as we go along. Vital signs really has become a core element of what we do. Kathy Newhook is the lead on that, and partners with various folks here. Tony Fang and Carrie Neal have been key contributors, Alvin Sims and Jamie Ward, and lots of others. Community Foundation, we couldn't do it without them. And we've just completed our 5th year of Vital Signs. And Ron Taylor was saying to me, a guy from the business community, he has it on his desk all the time. And it's amazing how people keep all 5, and they're on the web. And, anybody who's into data, Alvin, Jamie, Carrie, Tony, they can look on the StatsCan site and find what they're looking for. I can't do that. I need someone who knows that world to slice and dice and package and make it presentable. And for the people of this province, Vital Signs puts that on their kitchen table, literally, in their newspaper, every paper in the province once a year. And it's had impact. So we plan to continue that, but we're looking at ways we can leverage it, build on it. Welcome to ideas all the time. We have a bunch of new things we're evolving in the public policy civic engagement area. One is strategic doing. Ed Morrison at Purdue University has developed this as a worldwide toolkit, useful in strategic planning. There's all kinds of variations around strategic planning. The nice thing about strategic doing is a group can get together and in a day or two develop something that is actually almost a coalition of the willing. Our strategic plans for the Harris Center, you do a whole bunch of consultation, you get your vision, goals, objectives, actions, and you roll it out. For anybody who is in a community group or a municipality or an industry organization, coming together with other organizations in cross-organization collaboration, strategic doing is really tailor-made for that. And you leave with a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day action plan. And we've trained up a bunch of our team. Kathy and Justin are lead on that, but Boyan and Amy Jones and Kim are all in the loop on it. And we have a lot of colleagues within the university and outside. So we think there's a whole lot of possibility for that as one tool amongst others. But Purdue likes to deliver the training through universities. So they've asked us to be the lead in Newfoundland and Labrador, and indeed in Canada if we want. Our mandate is Newfoundland and Labrador. So maybe we'll just take half of Canada. But we're debating that, because careful what you take on, because we have core mandate. We don't want to drop the ball either. Again, talking about the Signal Hill campus space, we have the Yaffle Connect space branded right in the Signal Hill campus. And there's been discussions over the last few days on, so what is the final name for the actual space? Yaffle Corner. And we steal that from Think Corner in Helsinki, where they do similar programming. But the Harris Center programming in Think Corner is Yaffle Connects. Yaffle, of course, is the online tool we'll talk more about, recognized worldwide, unique in the world. There's elements around the world that have pieces of it. But nobody has quite what Yaffle has. Well, Yaffle Connects is live animation of all the opportunities and projects in Yaffle, using this space, working with grad students, working with faculty, working with community partners, bringing people together to explore an opportunity that's in Yaffle, and how do we move forward. So I think that's low threshold. It's not highfalutin. You don't need to book a big hall. We have access to that space all the time, and get out of the way. There's going to be a ton of cool stuff happening with that. But it's early days, so we're open and welcoming collaboration and how we shape that. And we're also looking now, Kathy and the team, at the various Memorial Presents, Synergy Sessions, Galbraith, on how we package them thematically. They've always been on big issues confronting the province, but we have lots of units around the university, the CARE Initiative in Economics, Geography Blue Box Series, Let's Talk Science, Engineering has a speaker series, all of which is hitting a lot of key issues in the province. So we're trying to figure out, are there key thematic areas consistent with our mandate where we'll be proactive in programming Synergy Sessions, Memorial Presents. And so Kathy's about to roll out a series for the spring, winter, spring, on the future of rural in Newfoundland and Labrador, topic most people around here are wrestling with and embracing. And then the next one, the future of work. There might be a little overlap there. And we have several initiatives and capabilities we can build on with all that. But we're open to other key themes that we can focus on with that toolkit. So that's kind of the public policy, civic engagement stuff. There's overlap between the various areas of the Harris Center. But on the regional development front, where Boyan and Amy Jones are the leads, Thriving Regions Partnership Process and the Sustainable Northern Coastal Communities have really now successfully, finally, I'm glad to be able to say that, taken the place of our regional workshops. We did regional workshops for 12, 13, 14 years around the province, 4 per year, 1 in Labrador, 1 West, 1 Central, 1 East, partnering with the regional economic development boards, which was great when they existed. But when they ceased to exist, it was really hard to find the community collection of partners who had a clear vision for their region, so that we could partner with them and say, we're not here to develop your vision, you're the owners of that, but we do have a lot of resources at the university that we could help you with. So what are your priorities? And no one could really point to that on a regional basis. And so this new initiative is a different funding model, where it goes out over a year or 2 in a particular region. And it involves an iterative process of 4 sessions. The first one where we go out and facilitate a discussion about what are their key priorities that the university could help with. Then we do a call and bring people out, not with particular research projects, but who are willing to work in those thematic areas. And together with the community, they shape the projects. Then they come back to seek funding from the project committee, which is co-chaired by a university person and a community person. And when we do those in Labrador, it's the Labrador Institute that's partnering with us. When we do them on the West Coast, which all of them on the island so far have been, we partner with Grenfell Campus. So again, that's that goal 3 I think I mentioned earlier. So it's really working nicely. There's a whack of projects up and running now on the Bay Verte Peninsula, Port aux Basques region, as well as the Northern Peninsula. And as I'll mention in a bit, we're now starting with Nunatsiavut. And we're looking at what are the next locations on the island. So that, as I say, 2 more regions to be done this year. And we want to extend now from the West Coast, maybe 1 in Central, maybe 1 in East. But again, those will be a 1.5 to 2-year iterative relationships with those regions. So we're not able to do the coverage we used to when we had a partner with that capability. But it probably is a more intensive, long-term, effective relationship than we did before. So we're very pleased with the way it's evolved. And it feeds into our applied research funds because it is about applied research, although targeted in a particular region for those funds. And so the Thriving Regions Fund is part of this. We still have the partnership with the Multi-Material Stewardship Board. They want us to do now an assessment after having done, I think, 2 rounds of 3 years each of funding with them. And a great response from within the university. Now we want to assess what did we achieve, where are we going with solid waste management and the issues around that in the province, and where should future funding be targeted and how should we manage that? So you'll be hearing more about that soon. The population project we've had on the go now. We first talked about it probably 12 or 13 years ago when our advisory board said you need to focus on key thematic priorities for the province, pull together money. Key Story agreed to be the research director. We budgeted $500,000 over 5 years that we were going to get from the private sector. Easier said than done. Everybody says these are key issues. Everybody says, Harris Center, you're doing a great job. Everybody says someone has to put money into this, but it should be someone else. There are a couple of private sector players who did step up, and the International Grenfell Association stepped up. And we have another private foundation ready to step up if we can close the gap on the remaining amount. And we're thinking we're going to be able to achieve that. But in the meantime, with the International Grenfell funding, we're able to focus on Labrador and the top of the Northern Peninsula. Alvin and Jamie really did, I think, watershed work in the province. Everyone has talked about demographics for years, but with the rigorous work our RANLab team are able to do sub-provincial at the level of the functional economic regions, with projections going out, looking at what are we facing region by region based on the trends, people really took notice. And some think it's depressing. Others took it as a challenge. Sheila Fitzgerald, the mayor of Roddickton, said, we're not going to let this break us. And now they're working in ways they haven't done before. And that's happening in a bunch of places. So, and then there were a whole bunch of reports that Keith oversaw, done, not Keith doing them, faculty within the university doing them, and in a couple of cases, partners outside the university, on topics the community stakeholders said were the priorities in light of those trends. So what proactively can we do? And the key point, and Tony Fang and his team are here, immigration is a critical area, but the population project hasn't focused on that. There's a bunch of work focusing on that. What we're focusing on is adaptation, kind of like climate change. We've got to do what we can to mitigate. Immigration is a key part of that. But we also know with the fertility rates, with the retention rates, with the fact that we've had out-migration for years, the population projections in almost all regions are not positive, even with immigration. And so we better get better at doing more with less. And that relates to public policy, relates to healthcare, relates to business. So there's a whole bunch of areas where we've started to do some of that work, and we want to continue that with the rest of the population project. Getting the evil eye from Kathy here. So we have a new research fund program we'll be rolling out soon. I'm not officially announcing it because we haven't got that stage yet, but it will relate to diversity employment in natural resource sectors. Oil and gas, mining, forestry, fishing, agriculture, and research that addresses how we get innovative approaches to employment for underrepresented groups. And when we look at the demographics, that's absolutely essential. So real nice synergies here. And we'll be announcing that very soon. And then hopefully we'll get that final funding gap on the population project. And that one is going to be more like our traditional funds with a call for proposals, but in various thematic areas. And then there's the knowledge mobilization and analysis work that we're doing that covers across a couple of our goals. YAFL, we've been doing now for 10 or 12 years. Jen Adams was there early on. Kim Crosby has taken the lead as Jen has moved up to Signal Hill. We will have another big announcement soon that I can't tell you about. But it is a national initiative with a good chunk of change that will make YAFL a tool that will be used across the country, which will give us resources to help us do a better job within Memorial and within Newfoundland and Labrador, and we're really excited about that. So stay tuned. And then the work Alvin and Jamie are doing, RAN Lab, we have great support from ACOA, partnerships with municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador, with the CBDC Association, Community Business Development Centers, and lots of other opportunities in healthcare with individual firms and industry. David Freshwater, I always quote this, Alvin always looks shy. He's going to punch me literally one of these days. Freshwater was head of rural development at the OECD, commuting from Kentucky to Paris. And he says, Alvin is the best in the world at doing this kind of geospatial analysis, doing the projections that relate to the real world. So we have a resource here that we're being recognized for its value. And Kim is working closely with Alvin on how we projectize this and develop it as an ongoing service. And so more of that to come. Almost done. Boyan from the side of his desk. I mean, he's doing the thriving regions, sustainable northern coastal communities, supports our various research funds. He and Rebecca Coho, who's in our Office of Public Engagement, run the Rural Roots podcasts, which has gone nationwide, worldwide, with interviews on rural issues. And if you haven't tuned into it, do so. And we have other people coming to us now saying, how can we partner to do Rural Roots podcasts? Regional newsletter is a newsletter. But again, how many people receive that every month or so? About 4,000. And that's updating on the things the Harris Center is doing, but also linking to our partners like the Center for Social Enterprise. Good to see Nicole here. And the Munn Center for Entrepreneurship. Good to see Florian here. So there's a whole lot of horsepower we didn't used to have that we're able to leverage now in our facilitation coordination role. And finally, we will be hosting yet another of these. I think we've done 2 before, if not 3, of the Canadian Rural Revitalization Foundation National Conference, partnering with the North Atlantic Forum International Conference up at the Signal Hill campus, October 1 to 5. And that'll be a great opportunity. I mean, one panel, am I allowed to say what it is, Boyan? Am I allowed to say the panel for the conference that you've got the people confirmed? Yeah. I say whatever I want anyway. Zita Cobb, David Freshwater, and Kevin Morgan from Wales. And I mean, that is so kick-ass you can't believe. So that one will really be exciting. And that's just a sign of the other stuff the conference will have. So stay tuned. So enough from me for now. Any quick questions, comments, high level? Because we're going to get into the weeds with the table discussions. Okay, so this is something I think Morgan Murray invented when he was with us, with his farmer background from Alberta. All the stuff that's in our, and I only touched on the highlights in the presentation. Is there stuff we're doing we should be doing more of? Feed. Is there new stuff that we may not be doing or just touching on that we should be starting? Seed. Or is there stuff that, yeah, no, that was good stuff, but you know, its day is done. Maybe you should move on from that, where we weed it out, because you can't keep doing everything with limited resources. So we have a Harris Center person at each table, I think. I'll move to one table. I think Kim is going to move to one, Boyan will, and Justin. So I think we're in good shape. Oh, do I? Yes. Oh, thank you. So there's our 5 goals as a reminder. Any more slides? So they can relate to the 5 goals in terms of the platforms, the networks, the support with faculties and schools, how we inform, assist stakeholders, or how we perform as an organization ourselves. And it can relate to any of that stuff. Keep going. No, Kathy's going to let me stop now. All right, we'll get at our tables. We're going to take 7 to 10 minutes for this. And each of you have a sheet in front of you with, and if you're online, there should be on the website, or just follow. Are there things along those 3 categories that you think we could be doing? Take a few minutes individually, write it down. We're going to collect those sheets at the end of the session. You can keep filling them in as the session goes on. But then that will also help inform the conversation at each table. Clear enough? Thank you all. Entertain us. Get to work. We'll circulate. And if you're online, we'll ask you to chip in by email when we do the report back. Yeah, that'd probably make for a better discussion. Yeah, maybe you should move to another table, sir. Welcome.
Yeah, I thought it was up at the.
Oh, shit.
It went up there and find a parking spot here. So it'll cost me $50 a parking.
Well, I owe you lunch or maybe supper. You can move to another table if you'd like. Oh, excellent. Oh, you got the main pitch, and we'll be doing this in Corner Brook and Happy Valley Goose Bay as well before the end of the month. Oh. No, I'm not going to.
Yeah. So you're good. When we go around, people are gonna each table. They're gonna need this.
Okay.
So
So you're going to be moving quickly.
yeah.
So for those in the room and online, we're going to do report back at 10 after. So you have another 8 or 9 minutes. So you should be wrapping up in 1 minute. I think Justin will flip the camera around. We do have muffins and coffee and stuff. If anybody wants to migrate out, migrate back in, feel free. Oh, so actually, yes, you're right. Oh, so that, well, it doesn't matter, but I'm not stuck there now. And is my mic on okay? Okay, and is there anybody still online? Okay, so if they want to, they can email in comments as we go. Okay. Okay, we're going to get our rapporteurs to report on each table. But we're going to do regatta style reporting where I get to all gone. You'll understand that momentarily. You haven't seen it before. I think the Harris Center people are the rapporteurs. And the people who are online, after I go through each question at the tables, I'll go to you to see if you have any points you want to make under each of these three areas. And you can email Kathy Newhook, that's on the website. And Kathy's email is Kathy with a C, Kathy N at mun.ca. Okay, all attention on me, which is the way it should be all the time. Justin is going to go to the table where Kim is, and Kim Crosby is going to give us, boy, the concentration some of these people have. Kim Crosby is the rapporteur for her table, and we're going to go each table, so the rapporteurs have to pay attention, because I only want one item, Kim, from number one, and then I'm going to go to the next table, next table, next table. So I want something different in each case. So Kim, give me one item. What successes could the Harris Center build on, invest more resources in, and or expand that your table talked about, if anything?
successes.
Well, you
Successes
should
that,
bellow out for people in the room too.
sorry. Okay, successes. I'm going to group them together. They came out as Vital Signs Population Project, Thriving Regions Fan Lab. Great successes. Build on them, but greater awareness, greater knowledge is going on, more knowledge mobilization about what's coming out of those things as a great thing that we need to do and expand.
Thank you, Kim. Justin will get the mic over to Kathy. Kim stole 4 items there. Very effective reporting there.
Fair, Kim.
Kathy, if there was any corroboration with that, you can say quickly, but also was there anything different?
Yes, all of those that Kim said, but also the applied research funds was something that was really felt strongly at this group.
Thank you. Justin, you can give the mic to yourself. Anything at your table that additional to what we've heard so far?
One of the things that we focused on here was identifying opportunities to strategically collaborate to reduce all these new big projects that happen across our networks. And oftentimes they run disconnected. They're ultimately unsustainable. So we have the opportunity to be more tactile and purposeful collaboration and engagement in what we do.
And you can get the mic over to Boyan. Anything different on number 1, Mike? Or Boyan, sorry. That
Did
was
you just call me Mike?
I did.
Did you just call me Mike?
In honor of Mike Clare, many years. He meant to be here today, but he had another meeting.
Unreal. Anyway,
Yeah.
so, yes, all of the above. And also we were told that information is the key. So we need to continue providing the information. But we also have to do that in non-traditional venues, and we have to get better at connecting directly to the communities. And then for the topics that we should be paying more attention to, a lot of it is around food security and climate change, but also things like co-ops and regional government. And Carrie had a brilliant title for a memorial presents in the future: the aquaculture, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Very good. So Justin, Kim, did you have anything else on number 1, things we need to build on? You need the mic for the people online.
I'm loud enough. I don't need the mic.
Yeah.
Better integration with the undergrad level on campus. So we hit the graduate level, we're at the faculty level, but starting at the undergraduate level, building in what the Harris Center does, the types of programs we have, and opportunities that exist in public policy, regional development, almost for further education, career choices, just that there's a whole world that may not be being realized by many of our undergrad students that are coming through some of the different faculties.
And that's a nice segue into number 2. Kim is always ahead of the game. It's really impressive. Kathy, did you have anything else to add on number 1, or did you want to segue into number 2? And you need the mic from Justin.
There was a suggestion to build on the workshops and add a technology component as well to sort of help facilitate further and continued discussion in the region. So not just have one-off sessions, but have the ability to kind of collaborate ongoing. And also strategic doing came up as something that should be strengthened, but there's future collaborations and looking to other groups and other facilitation models and other ways to bring people together as well.
Justin, anything else at your table on number 1 or in the number 2, organizations, sectors, issues we could do more on?
One of the points that came up from what we could do, how we could collaborate more, was a sense of, instead of this idea of more, focus on better, and helping other organizations collaborate better came up, and also collaborate better with like community organizations who may not always be already in our network and knowing what we're doing, to do a better job of, if they do reach out to us or they do have ideas, that we follow with them and broker them to whatever potential opportunity there is as best better.
Okay. And then Boyan, and then I'll ask Kathy if she's had any emailed in from anybody online.
Yes, what we could be doing more or better is connecting, for example, with the Canadian government. There are set priorities, and we need to come and talk to them and figure out what we can do to help them rather than the other way around. And same goes for the city. We also have to be very conscious that we have focused on rural Newfoundland for many, many good reasons, but we are missing an urban lens, and maybe it's time to start building one.
Thank you. And of course, the work Rand Lab is doing, as Elizabeth knows, and Alvin is doing a lot in the Northeast Avalon, but there could be more Harris Center could be doing there. Kathy, anything emailed in?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're still waiting. So if anyone is watching online and wants to email in any suggestions, go ahead and do that. We're waiting for you.
Okay. Anything else to add on number 2 from your table?
Yes, number 2, we had a great suggestion to develop a community of practice for network and broker-minded folks. So building on the idea of, we often bring people together, and it's Elaine, your word, unusual suspects. And the great collaborations that come out of those unusual suspects. And the Harris Center has a knack for, I guess, bringing those groups together, where you wouldn't necessarily be sitting at a table with people you end up sitting at a table with at a Harris Center session, and the great collaborations that can come out of that. So kind of setting up some kind of actual mechanism to bring those people together on a regular basis, so that we strengthen the collaborators and the networkers, so that the networks and the collaborations get strengthened through that.
Cool. Kathy, you can pass the mic back to Kim.
We had a lot of discussion that focused on the comment that the Harris Center is very well known by some groups, and to a lot of other groups, we're not very well known. So broadening that out, particularly on our expertise awareness, just creating that, what we can do, what all the tools are. Rand Lab was targeted, or I guess highlighted several times as the great unknown of what they do, what services they can provide. So increasing this expert awareness, and particularly within our provincial government, that some groups in provincial government know us very well, others don't. They don't know how, like Bojan, I think, had just kind of referenced with the feds, on how we can be of service to them. Here's more that we can do and we can provide. So trying to strengthen those ties and connections.
Great. Maybe back to Justin. Anything at your table on number 2 we haven't hit on yet?
We did talk about how the Harris Center could reinstill a sense of shared future amongst the public and other organizations, and move past a widespread sense of people feeling disconnected from institutions, not trusting institutions, and the whole, like, even individuals in their own lives being siloed off from, okay, what's my sense or role in these issues, to help change that landscape.
Okay. Over to Bojan. Anything else under number 2 we haven't hit on?
A few. Maybe one of the most important one is to start looking at synergies between various projects that we are aware of at the start of a project, rather than waiting for the end of the project to have a synergy session or whatever. And an interesting suggestion was that maybe there should be an opportunity to have a Harris Center staff embedded in a community or an organization for some period of time.
We've wrestled with trying to have Harris Center staff shared or placed in Grenfell campus, and also Labrador Institute. We did share for a while, but budget cuts have made that impossible. But maybe there's some innovative approach we haven't, or a funding source. Kathy took the mic back. Anything emailed in or anything else to add on number 2?
Nothing there online yet.
Okay. So we can segue to number 3, which was who could the Harris Center be connecting with? People, organizations, projects, networks. We've had a little bit on that already. Anything in your group we haven't hit on yet, Kathy?
Specifically, the Workplace Innovation Center was suggested as a group we should be partnering with. And another shout out to students and better connecting to students. And I especially liked the way that this person phrased it, that students could be a good way to tap into faculties and to other researchers, because they're, hungry and anxious and want to change the world and have lots of energy, and we haven't beaten that out of them just yet. So maybe we should capitalize on it and use that as a way to get more embedded within the rest of academia.
Great. Kim, on number 3, any other who we could be connecting with?
When we looked at some of the networks that we're involved with, it was brought up there's several like international gateway type organizations that are doing tremendous amounts of research and investments in areas on both coastal communities, conservation, rural revitalization, and all these different areas that are larger groups that actually do have funding research dollars that could benefit from the services that we provide, the knowledge that we produce, and as well as a possible source of additional funding as we try to bring more funds into the university for research. So should we start exploring these, whether referred to as the gateway organizations?
Great. Justin, number 3, we haven't hit on who we could be partnering with?
We came up with we could better leverage with the budget cuts. It creates an opportunity for innovation, and we could better leverage the assets that are already in our networks and collaborate more with what's around us instead of always trying to find the money for us to do it. There's a lot of assets that may not equal funding dollars that we could still get things done with. So there's a lot of opportunity there.
Great. Oyen, any others under number 3?
Yeah, actually quite a few. One of the really interesting ones was that we should be better at connecting local companies with export markets to international students, faculty, and staff from those countries, and probably help develop some better trade networks. The other really interesting one is building partnership with the Conservation Corps around climate change adaptation work that they are doing with municipalities. And the third one is building a relationship with Community Sector Council to develop informal network of facilitators for the province.
Great. Okay. Well, maybe while you have the mic, are there any others you want to capture while you have the mic? Because then I'll finish off from the questions, but then open it up to more general.
Yeah, Economic Developers Association of Newfoundland and Labrador. And we really need to connect with post-secondary, both college and university and Grenfell campus, maybe better. But that goes back to our desire. We always wanted to have a knowledge mobilization person at Grenfell, but that never kind of panned out.
And we have a great relationship with Kelly Vodden, who's the AVPR, Ken Carter with Go Engagement in the research office. The new VP at Grenfell, Jeff Cashin, is great and really connecting with community. So,
and they've been a fantastic partner on the Northern Peninsula and Port aux Basques.
Yep. Maybe back to Justin. Any last ones that you folks had on who to connect with?
The industry sector and industry organizations.
Okay, over to Kathy. Anything not covered?
I have something from Kimberly Dawson, who is watching online, and she says her 2 cents, climate change, growing senior population, more integration with nonprofits, rural jobs for more diverse groups, including those with disabilities. So those are some of her thoughts, broad, and we'll make sure we include those, Kim. And if you have a chance, fill out the survey.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Maybe back to the other Kim in the room. Anything not covered under the 3rd question, Kim? Who else we could be connecting with?
Yeah, we didn't get as much time to discuss on this one. I think some general discussion from some of our other comments and questions did come down to the other organizations, projects, and networks that we have existing around us. Again, there's a lack of knowledge and lack of awareness of what we do sometimes. So there's certain sectors where it was very aware and other sectors where we're not. So just to really keep building on our outreach on that and creating the awareness of what we can do. And because of our lack of discussion, did anyone else have a point that didn't get brought up on the 3rd question? Perfect. Here we go.
Seeing the online person was something about climate change. If you just want to add the words and topics, food production, food security, and food waste, they're hot topics globally and here too.
Great. Thank you. So, we try to structure the feedback as best we can, but we have a half hour. And so anybody, well, it'd be interesting to know, did anybody say there's anything we're doing we should stop? It's always a challenge to take on new stuff or extend the network unless you can leverage. But more broadly, anything anybody wants to raise as a suggestion that didn't fit neatly into this, or any questions for any of us that anybody wants to raise. Over to Dave, Kim, or Kathy, and then we'll get it over to Ron.
Thank you, Dave Radofsky. Rob, you've heard me say this before, and the Harris Centre can't be all things to all people, but we're not doing enough to create new innovative industries in this province, and we're certainly not creating enough jobs. maybe you could act as a catalyst between government. I often talk about the old Department of Development, and it just doesn't seem to be any development of any sort other than the creation of regulations that people have to fit in the box. And if they don't, it doesn't get done. So I would suggest that the Harris Centre perhaps look at being a catalyst, whether it's between government, entrepreneurs, whatever, because if we continue to produce vital signs that show our population leaving and our young people going because they don't have jobs, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
No, we've tried year in, year out with varying successes at varying times, working with provincial government, and we have lots of close colleagues. But as we all know, it's a big, difficult system with changing political priorities. And so we've never been able to crack the nut of a systematic, regular mechanism for engaging with government. It ebbs and wanes. We are getting, I think, traction, and it's been helpful being in the Signal Hill campus because the Genesis Center is really connected with a lot of private sector players. And the Gardner Center has a lot of people coming and going doing the training. And I think the new Munn Center for Entrepreneurship and the new Munn Center for Social Enterprise are opening connections. It's something the Harris Center has always wrestled with. And again, as you say, you can't be all things to all people. So we've always looked to, and Andy's still here, Andy Fisher from engineering. Engineering has the Industrial Outreach Office. Marine Institute has loads of connections with private industry at the company level. So the Harris Center has always seen itself more at the, use a jargon, meso level, the middle level, less dealing with individual firms, which I don't think you're necessarily saying that, more dealing with sectors. So we work a lot with the industry associations and dealing with regions. And as we know, there's a big gap now in regional capacity like the zone boards had. Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador has a significant municipal regional governance initiative that could be part of the solution. We are working really closely with RANLab, with the community business development centers, CBDCs, which are on the ground in 15 regions working with business. And, you know, I try not to suck up, but we do have a great relationship with the COA, and they do deliver when they say they're going to partner on something. But as you know, it's a messy, convoluted, ever-evolving game. But whether it's diversification or I think with the demographic situation, it's productivity and innovation in the sectors we have. And RANLab's a tool for that. But there's more we could be doing. And Ron has a background in all that, so it'll be interesting to see what I think he had his hand up to speak or ask a question.
Just to touch on everybody else has said, you know, you can't be all things to all people. And you know what? And I take it one step further. You shouldn't even want to be. And so anyone that you want to connect with out there in the community or in business, what's the value proposition? Identify what that value proposition is. Okay. And if you can't, then don't do it. You know, it's not a question of the Harris Center needs to be all things to all people. If you identified 5 or 6 good initiatives with people out there that you could put the value proposition to the Harris Center and to the group you're engaging, very clear on what the goals were, short period of time to execute it, 6 to 12 months, and execute it and be successful, that's moving ahead versus saying, well, we should collaborate with everybody. And I don't agree with that because I always say, you know, I've been living here for 15 years, and I always say sometimes the best way to connect with Newfoundlanders is to exclude them.
A line I've heard over the years, rural Newfoundland, I get hell no matter what I say. If you want people to show up at a meeting, don't invite them because then they'll think, oh, that matters. I need to be there. But you're absolutely right. We do have, and this exercise annually, and I keep saying we're the only organization in the province, to my knowledge, that does an annual public consultation on our strategic plan. And so that is because we constantly want to see what should we be adjusting to do. But then we establish that annual plan within the framework of the 5-year plan. And then every month we have a stage gate meeting for our management team because we get new opportunities. Tony Fang calls me 3 times, 4 times a year with 5 great ideas. And we want to do all of them, but you can't. So which of them are going to fit? And we've partnered on a bunch of stuff. And the same applies with a bunch of people here. One thing we did in the 5-year plan, which over, you know, 12, 13, 14 years, we were set up to do regional economic development, facilitation, brokering, and related public policy. But there's shades of gray between health, environment, social, economic. You can't separate them. But we did start to move even more broadly. And with reduced resources, we just couldn't do it. So we did have in the 5-year plan a course correction back to regional development, broadly defined. And there's a sexy diagram I love to use with triangles all over it that shows where the shades of gray in the middle are. And our stage gate meetings every month are pretty active in saying, does this fit with our mandate? Does it fit with our strategic plan? Does it fit with our priorities? Should we do it or not? And so we want those ideas, and some of it resonates, and we'll jump on it and run with it. Other stuff, we'll put it on the back burner or just say no. Right here. Chris.
Chris Patterson. So first of all, I want to acknowledge Justin at our table. The fact that he had any comments coming out of our conversation, I think was quite remarkable. So thank you. I was looking at his notes saying, did we actually say that? But also, I was also trying to listen a little bit and sort of a little bit of a comment I'd made at our table because I heard it here, but then I heard it throughout the whole room, is this little bit of a creative tension for the Harris Center, which is on the one hand, I think a really important role in articulating the value add is important, and thinking about what is the value add for this is, and it kind of reflects something you had up there earlier, Rob, the big questions. And what in the work that I used to do and still do a little bit of, it's, we would talk a lot about, you can't just sort of go in and jump in and do the work. In many cases, you have to change, use consultant speak, you got to change the narrative. You got to change the way people are thinking and talking about whatever the issue. It could be the economy. It could be the way we think about immigration. It could be the climate change. You got to sort of have a conversation about how we talk about those things. And so that's the big picture stuff. At the same time, and this was this is our table, and I heard it as well around the room, there needs to be some really practical work that gets done. So how do you do a both and? Because one without the other is probably not going to make the progress we want. So how do you take some of the sort of that energy of the Harris Center and the university at whole and get some really practical outcomes where you can say, here's what we're going to accomplish in the next 12 months, and here's the outcome, and here's the benefit, but not do that to the exclusion of saying, how do we change the nature of the conversation in the province around some of these tougher, bigger issues? And I think the Harris Center is well situated to do both of those. And the question is how that's the golden question.
Yep. And some of the work we've done with the Population Project, with RANLab, I think on demographics in the province has changed the narrative. And I think, for some people it's doom and gloom. Others are saying, no, we need to wrestle with this. And the ocean supercluster is all about digitalization, remote operations, being competitive, but recognizing that there's likely going to be a smaller workforce. We didn't cause that, but it's part of the context of that work. The work we've done on regional government and regionalization for 15 years, M&L is all over it. The provincial government has formal policy on it, but it moves slowly. But we also constantly are brokering small projects through YAFL, and the bigger stuff often takes a long time. And so you're absolutely right. It's not either or. And in our own work plan, we need to protect time for the long-term stuff and protect time and have short-term actions for the deliverables. But you're right, that tension is constant. Other thoughts, questions, comments? Bruce, and then Florian. Oh, okay. So we'll go Bruce, then one online, then Florian, then another online.
This table has a lot to say.
Yeah.
A couple of things. I think the secret to your future success is in your hands, because everything I'm hearing, that's what's been happening, sounds like it's generally the right approach for an organization like the Harris Center. Be flexible, be nimble. Don't lose that. Don't over strategic plan yourself into a corner. What's the purpose of strategic planning anyway? To give you guideposts and give you direction, but everybody changes their strategic plan if an opportunity arises, or they should, to some degree anyway. So I think you've got a stable of very trained strategic horses about how to proceed. I think you need to watch the university survival context pretty carefully. I don't know what's going to happen at MUN. You've got a changing president. Who knows where it's all going? So that's like, if you got to do some oddball things to survive, then we'll all understand. In other words, sometimes organizations are forced to chase money, for instance, and they do that for survival. I mean, that's mission creep. Why are they doing that? Well, because by getting that climate change project, we can actually keep our doors open. So I understand there's some deeper strategy that might be required. So I'm sure you folks will look at that. The question I have is like, why would I call up the Harris Center to come and help me? What can they do that I can't do myself? What calls can they make that I can't make myself? See, here's where I can identify a person in the Harris Center. Rob knows everybody in government. I'm going to give Rob a call. But if Rob wasn't there and I'm just calling a 1-800 number, do I really need the Harris Center? So this raises the question, what is your skill expertise? I know you're a linker and a brokerer, and the skills are all over the university and beyond. But maybe there's a spot inside the Harris Center where your very staff can get so skilled up that they are the best. So that's a thought I've had, that maybe you can also have a specialty within an organization that doesn't claim to have a specialty, if you get my drift. And maybe that specialty is around the brokering and the building and maintenance and supporting of networks and coalitions and partnerships, and when you should avoid them and which ones you should get out of and how not to overstructure them, and et cetera, how do you phase them. That sort of work. That could be a sweet spot. I think you claim it now. So I think that's a good thing. And the last thing is about who should know about the Harris Center. I think from a university survival point of view, it's good. It's good that every person out around the Bay can utter the words Harris Center and say something about it, even if they've got it wrong. But really, do you need everybody in the province to know what the Harris Center is? We don't know about the Food Inspection Agency all that much, do we? And we don't really care. And people in the government don't know much about what OCIO does or the OIPC. So I think you are in that, was it meso?
Meso, yeah.
The meso layer. Yeah, I think that's right. Ron and Natty need to know who you are. But does,
every company doesn't need to.
And do my kids need to know about the Harris Center? Now, there is a strategic value for everybody to say the Harris Center. That's that good thing up at MUN, isn't it? So anyway, those are my comments.
Thank you, Bruce. Kathy, maybe one from online, and then Florian, and then another one online, and then who else in the room?
This one is a follow-up from Kimberly Dawson. She just had some additional thoughts. Teach people how to collaborate effectively. I think that's something we keep hearing this morning. And keep the focus on rural Newfoundland and Labrador, and also diverse groups.
Thank you. Florian.
Was just a quick comment. I was reviewing the 24 objectives, and kind of when I was reading, like, that's a lot of objectives. And I think after 2 years, you should be able to get a sense of which one have the most impact right now and could have the most impact in the future, and maybe prioritize some of them and put more resources according to them. You can still do some others, but like I think after 2 years, there might be some information from the data you collect that can guide you on where to focus more, where you can maximize your impact.
No, great point. And one of the challenges is with the Harris Center mandate across all campuses, working with all faculties and with broad external stakeholders. It's kind of the blind man and the elephant. Many people go to a Memorial Presents regularly and think that's the Harris Center. Others connect with RANLab and think that's the Harris Center. And so the magic, as much as we can manage it, is that various folks in the Harris Center are the leads on different things. I do very little work, as most people know. But then it's how we partner with key faculty, key centers, key external partners. And so there's a great presentation, actually, a PowerPoint, a guy who led a big environmental building construction at UBC. And he had 3 or 4 little analogies, and one was plate spinning. So half of what we do on most of those objectives is not chewing up a lot of time each month, but it's a meeting, spin the plate again, run to the next thing, because it keeps the network moving, connecting. I may deal with the Research Impact Network twice a year. Boyan probably deals with it once a week. And so I hear if we chose 3 or 4 or 5 key objectives, and with my priorities, I could say, yep, that's the ones we should focus on. We get a lot of grief from a lot of sectors saying, hey, you stop doing X, Y, Z. Our mandate is quite broad, but it's an attention Chris talked about earlier. So it is a balancing act. Another one online?
Yes, this one comes from Stephen Gardner. And he says, recently, the Auditor General held a session at Memorial about the state of the economy in Newfoundland and Labrador. All material and data presented was for the entire province, of course. None was regionalized or, more importantly, divided between rural and urban. Many have called for a discussion on how we can rationalize service delivery in Newfoundland and Labrador going forward. As a means of dealing with mounting debt and the simple fact that we are living well beyond our means in many respects. We need to talk about a model of resettlement, period. Dirty word, no question. But the time has come. Could the Harris Centre delve into that fiscal data released and somehow apply it to resettlement, service rationalization, delivery discussion?
Great point, and something we've done a ton on over the years. If you go to the Harris Centre website, you'll see a report that Steve Tomlin did about 13 years ago, and then on regionalization in health, in economic development, red bees and stuff, on municipal, and on, there was one more. And then Wade Kearley did a series of interviews and a workshop and did a separate report on how we move forward on that. It didn't, though, get as much into the fiscal analysis piece. It is something with RANLab that we can do. And Alvin is working with Kim and other stakeholders to unleash RANLab in a more accessible way. And we're getting there. There is a really great report that Pat Curran did, who did his master's in political science as part of our regionalization project with Alvin and David Freshwater and Kelly Vodden. And so Pat did a report on regionalization in the context of demographic change. Recently, it's been presented to the provincial government with really positive response. It's on our website, and it takes a really systematic, implementable approach to gearing public services to available resources, revenues, and available or appropriate population levels. I personally am not an advocate of resettlement because I don't think government's good at picking winners, as everyone says. Neither is government good at picking losers. And the functional regions work that Alvin has done, and Jamie and others, is very clear that the vast majority of the rural population are in urban labor market areas. And the vast majority of rural communities are in urban labor market areas. So we got to stop talking, and Elizabeth is right, rural versus urban. I've been saying this for 20 years, written on it. We got to be talking regional. For those remote communities and rural non-adjacent, like outside commuting area, but still connected by road, we need to be very clear about what services are required and what innovations can be done in what ways. Big topic. We've done a ton of work on it. But the fiscal angle, I actually have been asked to present to the Bank of Canada when they're in St. John's in the spring, and Alvin and Jamie and I have a meeting this afternoon to start preparing for that. So maybe the fiscal piece is something we could tack on to all the other work we've done, and that'd be a nice project. Tony.
Okay, as you mentioned, Harris Centre is our major stakeholder and a supporter of the on-campus immigration research group, actually funded by a billionaire immigrant entrepreneur based in Montreal. His name is Stefan Jaroslawski. And so we were involved in a number of projects supported by Harris Centre, including applied research funds on Syrian refugee integration, and also 2 projects under the population project, and also our postdoc fellow was
Mm.
also generously funded by Harris Center. So we really appreciate it about, the kind of work you're doing. The other is that, I really listen to the comments from this table here. I think, given our limited, resources, we should really focus on some applied, impactful, and also deliverable projects, right? That could affect the future of the province, including economy, right? So I was talking about that. Employment, population, immigration, regional development, and climate change, perhaps in the long term. So perhaps, a lot of, university researchers are good at doing research in dark room, but not good at communicating with the general public. And also sometimes media relations. I think, Harris Center can play a crucial role in terms of, mobilizing the knowledge and research findings to the general public, and maybe some just, bullet points, on those big issues. And that's what we come up from, research from Memorial, from other groups from the government and so on. So that, the people in the province would have, a critical awareness of the work we are doing, right? I think that's, I think my 10 cents here. I think about a valuable role of Harris Center.
Thank you, Tony. We have 10 minutes over back to the talkative table. Very high quality.
Thank you. My name is Mike Keogh. I'm here this morning on behalf of a group called Older Workers, Newfoundland and Labrador. We're a group who must or choose to remain employed, choose to contribute to the economy rather than drawing down from the economy. There are going to be a lot more of us, they tell us. We formed in 2018. This is my first interaction with the center. In meetings, I, at one point in time in October of last year, reached out to the center and it provided me with some research material that we had been gathering. I appreciate that very much. It was very well handled at the time. But looking back at it, I think I find the presentation this morning like a forest, and I'm looking for a path through it because it's all overwhelming to me. And my perception of the Harris Center was that it was high level, and it was great for academia, and it wrote great reports, but not really in terms of what we did. But you do a lot more that we didn't know about. I've been active in community-based organizations for years. So last year, there was an opportunity missed, and I'd hope you build on it, that somebody perhaps should have put me into a file system when I called in and maybe circulated to the rest and said, here's this group. They've just funded. They're self-supporting. Most of them work. And they have issues they're dealing with as they age, loss of benefit coverage, silver ceilings, technology barriers, the perception that you're keeping younger workers down, but they don't want to give it up because they need it to live, or they choose to remain contributing, but nobody followed up. So I'd encourage you to be more proactive in marketing your services and what you do. When we started looking at all of the issues, we found that there's no shortage of people out there like yourselves and opportunities and organizations doing it. So it's hard to know where to go. We wasted a lot of time. We partnered with the city of St. John's and to make an application to do some research on older workers through the Newfoundland and Labrador Workplace Innovation Center. In October, we were going to be told in December, then we were going to be told in January, then we were going to be told in February, and then all of a sudden a one-liner says you weren't successful. So it's that kind of a pit that we want to. So I'd encourage you, without knowing your successes, I'm sure there were many, but I'd encourage you to get engaged with the ground level. And one other very brief story. 2 years ago in 2017, a longtime friend of mine called me from Montreal. He owns a marketing company, a distribution company, and he wanted me to give him 6 cans of seal meat that he wanted to test market in northern Quebec. I said, well, we'll see. We couldn't find one. Then we looked for a case. Then we went across Canada to get a case. We couldn't get one. Then we looked in the world to get a case. We couldn't get one. So he said, well, let's partner with somebody to do it. So we researched across the province. We went to the province, we went to the institute, we went to a number of other places and said, what opportunities? And there was a lethargy. There was a like, this don't fit in what we want to do. We'll say, well, I'm sure it doesn't, but this is what we want to do. This partner has money. He thinks it's a good product. He wants to do it. And at the end of the day, after 6 months, between the provincial, federal departments of fisheries and the Marine Institute, he walked away. This year, a fish harvester who owns a couple of vessels came along and said, I hear you did this work a couple of years ago. I'd like to do some canned salmon, some canned lobster, some canned mackerel. And we met with the Marine, and we met with the province again. And there's a lethargy. There's no leadership. So I'd encourage your center to come down to the ground level. Don't be afraid of us. There's a lot of community people, and there's a lot of older people out there that we need skills enhancement. You can't buy Excel training. I tried to. So anyway, I've rambled a bit. I wasn't going to be here. I want to thank the invitation to be here. And we look forward to keeping an eye on you and hopefully see that you're not going to write us off as a bunch of old people.
No, well,
Okay, thank you very much.
your points are really well taken, and we here will be next, Kathy. We do these sessions and regional sessions in the same way because you need to extend the networks all the time. In response to how do we follow up more effectively, constant challenge. One thing is I never turn down a meeting, and I'm pretty solidly booked. But if anyone ever asks to meet, I meet. And Boyan's same, Kathy's same, Kim's same. Because often the challenge is you get an email, you reply, but if you don't get face-to-face and really sort out what the hell is this person asking for, often the answer is, no, boy, sorry, no one is interested in that, or no one I know. But at least we know with the type of thing you described, at the Marine Institute, there are people who do research on canning and packaging of marine. So it's interesting that, you know, the follow up on that particular one. So there's most of this is a contact sport. It's human interaction, and you do need to get face to face. But we also developed YAFL as a tool, which we haven't marketed near well enough because lack of resources. We are very excited that we're going to have a new project this year with money that's going to help us build capacity for that. Because you could easily go on the first time you reached out to us and put your name, your organization in YAFL and what your areas of interest and expertise are. And then it becomes a tool that Boyan and Amy can use to connect within the university. But there's loads of people we don't know in the university. A new grad student may be looking for a project that relates to what you're up to. And I love it because we don't have to touch it. You find each other without us getting involved. But again, it's only as good as we market it and make it available to people to use. So I think we have a lot of capacity. That's we got an 8-cylinder car that's driving at 20 miles an hour, whatever bad analogy I can come up with. Kim and then to here. So sorry. Just on that, I think.
Just on that point, adding on to YAFL, it was a big topic of conversation at our table about YAFL, how we make it better. You know, it's a bit more static, but how do we make it more well-known, more usable by both the university and increase adoption of it? So it was a big topic that was brought out here today as well.
Great. And over to here, who's worked very closely with us over many years also in a different area.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I think this is really very good forum to discuss these issues because we don't have this kind of forum at university level. We have many other departments that are doing different jobs, but I think it is really very useful to know in which direction we are moving, you know. And as a researcher and faculty member, we have obligation for the community, you know, as well. We do a lot of research over here, and I'm really thankful to Harris Center for funding several studies to us. And that motivated me to understand what are the issues in rural communities, you know, especially in my own area, which is environmental engineering, you know. As discussed in this forum, there are a lot of opportunities within the province, you know. I know that we are facing these budget crisis and other things, but there are many other opportunities where we can create more jobs for in the province. There is a huge amount of capital infrastructure available in which rural communities will have to pay only 10%, 90% money comes from federal and provincial government. And we should try to get those resources, in helping to industries and others through faculty members and our research. And that may create a lot of jobs, and it will also fix many infrastructure facilities within the province, So I think the point which came up over here that someone has to take as a leading role to fill the gap between researchers and government in getting those resources and moving in that direction. Maybe Harris Center can play a very good role. I'm so impressed, although you have very small number of people working in Harris Center, but they have been very supportive for these things, and we need to move in that direction.
Thank you, Tahir. And he's not here today, but we have worked really closely, as I've mentioned before, with Craig Pollitt, Municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador, and they're a key element in some of the areas you described. And we think we're going to have some more new initiatives this year with them also. So fingers crossed. We're pretty much out of time, but any last comments, questions? Nothing left online, Kathy? And we are all open for business day in, day out, by email, phone, meeting, Yaffle. We're going to do a session like this in Corner Brook and one in Happy Valley Goose Bay before the end of the month. And we have the forms that you can fill in. If you haven't already, please do. And if you're online, please fill it in and submit it. We'll do a roll-up of all that, and that will inform our priority setting for 2019-20. Have I missed anything, Kathy? Boyan, Kim, Justin, any last thoughts, comments? You can drop off your name tag. Thanks a million for viewing online. We know how difficult it is to... Yes. You have to proactively sign up because of privacy. So go to the Harris Center website. You'll be in our loop. Thank you all very much. We're going to collect all the sheets, so you can just leave them on the table. Really appreciate your time, folks. More to come.